Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
Mark here, another great Wisdom and Knowledge 5 podcast, and I bring on self-sabotage coach Jahan Satur. Jahan, I want to discuss today, tactics that, bring people under mind control and how to break free from that. Now, let me start out by talking about things like watching television. What does that do to you to affect, your mind, your mindset, your health, you name it?
Watching TV is one of the worst things that anybody could actually do. I mean, if you want to completely screw up your brain activity, then go ahead and sit in front of the TV. Because what happens is that the television is suppressing your frontal lobe activity, prefrontal cortex. So it deactivates within like 90 seconds of watching TV. And what happens is that in most cases, and people don't realize that it's happening, it causes people to feel depressed and anxious because it decreases the activity in your frontal lobe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of that has to do with when you're watching a movie, your brain's trying to process like 20 or more images, and it's rapidly moving every second. And so in order to do a big task like that, your brain can't really do anything else. And the prefrontal cortex has to be deactivated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gives you that feeling of being lost in a movie. So, um, I'm trying to remember the story. I think it's there was a test that was done on like 5,400 movie watchers, and 82% of those people actually misinterpreted what they just watched. And I guess because the prefrontal cortex was deactivated, they didn't really understand what was going on because there was no rational thought, right? So the prefrontal cortex is the seat of wisdom and spirituality, rational thinking, um, where all your morals and your values come from. So these people just blindly accept whatever is going in. And I suppose I mean, I wouldn't really advise it because of the effects on the brain, but I suppose if you had something really good that you wanted to memorize, that would be the way to do it, right? Watch it on TV. But
Sure.
there's a lot more to the way that system works. It's just that the limbic system is being targeted either by the people who make the TV shows, or what I should say, who make the TVs, or it's being targeted by people in labs who make chemicals to put in food, right? So
Yeah.
it's a big component of mind control. It's just getting at your limbic system because when you're irrational and emotional and you have all these false ideas about the world, well, whatever is in your subconscious is what you believe, it's what you see in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much one way that they do it. I could talk a little bit more, but surely you have questions.
No, yeah. So it's basically it's also similar to the toxins you're eating with GMO foods or something. Because I'm a big proponent of eating organic, eating non-GMO, and even with that, you have to watch yourself and you have to check for seed oils, things like that. You name it, and isn't the ones putting out the stuff in Hollywood, you name it, it's all like one giant corporation or the same people running the show, doing the things to the people.
Yeah, they get you hooked on their TV shows, the emotional content or whatever. And I
Hmm.
think that what I've experienced in my coaching business is that people want to replace the everyday experiences that they have with false realities on purpose. They want to avoid, they want to escape. I've been telling the story about the Bridget Jones lady for a while. It was her favorite movie and she wanted to quit smoking. Every time she would get going, she'd have a bad day or something. She'd sit down and try to soothe herself with Bridget Jones's diary. And then she'd be right back on the horse. And then she realized how much of her behaviors were Bridget Jones's behaviors. They were just
Hmm.
implanted in her. And then she realized other things about other stuff she watched as well. And until she pulled herself away from watching television, she didn't really make any change because the subconscious was going right back to the familiar all the time, right? She's going to
Yeah.
emulate common behavior, emulate what she saw regularly. And I used to know a girl that whenever she'd have a bad day, she'd turn on Alice in Wonderland, the one with Johnny Depp, and she knew
Oh
all the
yeah,
words.
okay.
Yeah, she knew all the words to every line in that movie. That's how much she watched it. And she would just like go into a trance and she would just repeat the lines along with the movie, and it was scary to watch. And she was
Oh
like,
yeah.
she was struggling with so much stuff like depression really badly, like suicidal thoughts, all kinds of stuff like that. It's crazy.
That's
But
incredible. And to think about it, and I'm sure you and I are getting back to that, but growing up, yes, we watched TV, but we went outside, we played, we, did things in nature. We actually, experienced the environment. Whereas today, especially in, I think the teens and the 20 somethings, they're constantly being bombarded by the latest TV show, by social media, you name it, and they're not experiencing what we are experiencing.
yeah, they have no idea. Like the technology wasn't as strong either.
No.
Uh, I think it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. And with these LED screens and everything, prefrontal cortex probably gets deactivated way faster
Hmm.
than anything else. Uh, Back then, you could still had that element of being forced to spend time with yourself and other
Hmm.
people. Like you elevate your consciousness by interacting with other people and having opposing views and stuff like that. And like as guys, I don't know what it was like for you, Mark, but we'd always be rolling around, getting into tussles and beating each other up and stuff. And then afterwards, we like pick each other up off the ground and dust each other off and be like, okay, let's go get like a fucking snow cone or something, and
No,
just
I know exactly. Yeah, but we
yeah.
had the same, mindset, and yeah, and like you said, interaction too. I mean, especially after 2020, it seems like kids, and well, even with the cell phone era, even way before 2020, the interaction is. I've interviewed people where they're like, their teenage kids are like hanging out together, and they're on the, phones chatting with each other when they could be chatting with each other right there. You know what I mean? They're right there next to each other. It's gotten that bad. It's so sad to see. I mean, yeah, we had technology. Like growing up, we'd play computers and we played the Nintendo, but like in school, we played computer games, but we'd also go outside, experience fresh air, do things, you know, uh,
Yeah.
much differently than today's time.
Yeah, and like I was saying, the TV destroys the frontal lobe, and so
Hmm.
does the screen. I call these things death rectangles because that's exactly what they are. They just put you into a coma. And there's a lot of people that these days, especially like what you were saying with the kids, they just can't live without it. They
No.
have no idea how to communicate. Like Snapchat is a big thing for these kids these days, and they don't know how to have any social interactions without it. And that's scary because we're pretty much hardwired to integrate into any environment that we go into,
Hmm.
but we don't socialize anymore. And the television, it is well documented that the television or any kind of screen is going to lower your IQ. It's going to decrease your verbal abilities. It's going to be the catalyst for developing antisocial behavior
Hmm.
because of the effect that it has on the brain, which I can get into in a second. It can actually become a precursor to addictive behavior. You can become a drug addict because the screen creates a scenario just like drugs in your brain. And you like I said, depression and anxiety, that's poor mental health. If you can't manage your thoughts, you're screwed in life because there's nothing about life that's going to be easy on an everyday basis. And obesity is pretty obvious because people just sit there and shove shit in their face
Hmm.
and watch crap, scroll through Instagram, watch movies, you name it. Um, so I I feel like I should touch on the addiction thing because TV is literally screwing up your brain tissue and stuff. Um, like the hypothalamus gets blown up. Your visual cortex suffers, and you see all these people walking around with glasses, all these young kids with glasses, like freaking Poindexters or something, because no, they just, they play the video games and they watch stuff where they're on their computer all day. But this is what I want people to understand. Like the same systems that are being hacked by the television are being hacked by the chemicals in food. Everything is neurotransmitter based, but there's three limbic brain systems that get attached. I guess you can call them pathways. And in these three pathways pretty much they're sending and receiving information, and then that's translated into emotion, right? And it's usually a negative emotion, which is not a good thing. So how these pathways are moving together, how they interact together is pretty much going to dictate your perceptions and your emotions and the behaviors that you choose, right? So um, these reward pathways are essentially collections of neurons that send and receive information. And they're basically responsible for decoding neurotransmitter activity. Any information that you get from that is pretty much controlling you. We are chemical based. So
Hmm.
the human body is just like, we're already drug addicts every single day. We don't need drugs. The neurotransmitters already are keeping us pretty stoned, you know?
Hmm.
So a lot of these neurons synthesize dopamine, which is actually a chemical for communication. And then there's another collection of neurons in the middle of the brain called the ventral tegmental area. And when those neurons are firing, they're sending more dopamine to the nucleus accumbens, which is the part of your brain that gives you that feeling of motivation or it accompanies reward and is also associated with learning. So when you get a little hit from watching an Instagram video or something, you start to feel smart. You want to tell all your friends what you just learned. Like people are going to do that when they listen to me talk.
Hmm.
It's the nucleus accumbens that is receiving these neurotransmitters. And the nucleus accumbens also learns what feels good, like porn or shopping or masturbation or alcohol or whatever. So it's one of the major pathways that's associated with addiction when you can't break a habit or anything else that you can't stop. Because for me, self-sabotage is any collection of thoughts, emotions, behaviors, habits that you can't stop. Then, that's your nucleus accumbens getting screwed. And I guess a big part of that problem as well is that those neurons release endogenous opioids. So yeah, it's already morphine and heroin to you, you know?
Hmm.
When you think that you're happy and you're watching your TV or you're eating your freaking Doritos or something, that's what's happening because those people sit around in those labs trying to figure out how do we get that limbic system to activate? How do we activate this person's contentment pathway, right? And or their reward centers have to light up like a Christmas tree, right? So Um, you also have that contentment pathway that is all about good and bad. It starts with the prefrontal cortex and it goes to the dorsal raphe nucleus. And the dorsal raphe nucleus, I think it's like 1% of the serotonin in the body is produced in that small part of the brain, and it spreads out all over the brain. And I think it goes to the cerebral cortex. So that is what is helping us to process experiences, and that's how we make judgments in the world, like what's good for us, what's bad for us. But serotonin is one of those things that seems to be misunderstood in pop psychology, where they kind of talk about it in this really weird way. And recently there's this big focus on gut health and all this kinds of stuff like that. I mean, that's a big component to it,
Hmm.
but you have to understand how it's actually working differently in your brain depending on where it's going to. So it's changing your behavior depending on where it's being sent to, depending on which pathway is being hacked, right?
Hmm.
So we're misinterpreting things based on how this serotonin receptor is firing. And that in itself is enough to blow somebody's brain up. But back to the same thing about the television, whatever you watch becomes your memories. So if you're watching TV and then a commercial comes on and it's like Bud Light or whatever, and that's your favorite beer, and you're like, oh, I gotta go buy some of that stuff. They're basically targeting your stress fear memory pathway, but so are the movies as well. And it's my favorite thing to focus on, especially in coaching, because so many people don't realize how that's been hacked throughout the years, because it's dealing with four basic areas. It's the amygdala, which is your stress center, your hypothalamus, which is cortisol, and your hippocampus, which is your memory center. So it's affecting how you interpret memories as good or bad. It's pretty much recording everything as if it's your own memory, because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and what's on a screen. And then the prefrontal cortex is involved in pretty much every reward system, right? Every pathway. So because the prefrontal cortex is responsible for stopping behaviors that are bad for you, when that's not working well, you can't make good choices, right? So that stress fear memory pathway is what's controlling all your behavior. So if you have somebody that's experienced something that to them is traumatic, then that's a problem, because there's too much crap in the pop psychology. Oh my God. I could go off on a real tangent about it. It pisses me off because technically a traumatic event is just experienced as the medial prefrontal cortex deactivating. And it kind of simulates the feeling of being a turtle in a shell. And that causes you to prepare for a massive attack. And so you block out certain things and you only recall the things that were painful, right? And everything is fragmented. And so you have to help people just go in gently and piece together the puzzle. And then that's it. It's over and done with. You can move on. There's all these different techniques that you can use that you can get them to view the memory and, you know, grab the memory and realize that, okay, I can actually touch this. And then, where do I feel my response to that memory in my body? Create a somatic bridge. That's what it's called. And you can get people to then work with the information. And once you teach people to see that it's all just information, it's not stuff that's happening to you over and over again, then people can learn to differentiate between a struggle, a problem that they don't have the solution for, and a real trauma, right? And I'm working with people who've had real traumas, people who have been raped, human trafficked, sex workers, domestic abuse, all this kinds of stuff. But I realized that to all of them, or most of them, I should say, not all, I shouldn't generalize like that. Most of them, they're having the same responses and they just don't know what they don't know. So they don't know that they can get in there and work with the information. And it doesn't have to be a frightening experience, but pop psychology tells you that you're damaged for life. And if a person believes that they're broken, that's all they're ever going to be, broken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about something like, well, obviously in my experience, because I'm someone who's broke free from a lot of stuff because like I told you last time, I've actually worked on TV shows just as a fly on the wall. And I'm like caught on to the propaganda, especially after 2016 and, the stupid election nonsense and stuff. And they were just tearing down statues, this, that, the other. And I remember there was a one episode that I worked on where we're hostages and it is like an ISIS type situation, okay, NCIS LA. And I found out that the episode was about a vaccine. They're trying to protect a vaccine. So it had really nothing to do with this terrorist. It was about something, some bioweapon vaccine, go figure. But it's just, me breaking free. Yes, I still enjoy watching soccer. That's about the only thing I watch on when it comes to sports. But I was watching, growing up, watching sports left and right, obsessed with it. Even in my older years, and I just broke free from it. And I said, wait, is this really the giving me pleasure? Is this really fun? Or is this all, scripted? Is this, that? Is this a waste of time? Are they pushing propaganda left and right during the games, which they were obviously, the programming, mind control of the crowd, the Doritos commercials, Pepsi commercials, like you said, Bud Light commercials. And I just said it's not for me, where uh so you can actually do that. But what about when it comes to something like, and this is along the same lines, people, because you and I are both not political, we are all about humanity. And it's funny. This is like the perfect time for me to be interviewing you because I'm downtown by the harbor front where I live, because I got the harbor front here, I got the beach here, and it's tourist season. There's somebody in town. They're parked, they got their SUV, and guess what they got in the passenger side of their SUV? It's an empty car. They got an ultra mega t-shirt on there because they have to indoctrinate the whole world to say, hey, I'm obsessed with this guy. And I'm like, exactly, you and I know, we know exactly what they're doing. And it's like, why? Just why do they have that mindset? They have to rely on someone else, you know what I mean? And to worship this guy.
Yeah, that's what it is. People in general, throughout the ages have learned to be helpless. You know,
Hmm.
they are waiting on somebody to come along and save them and do everything for them. And they really believe that they need the government and that all these people above them are there to help them, but they're really not, they're just really grasping at straws when they do stuff like that. Politics is one of the silliest things. Anybody that's ever listened to Jordan Maxwell knows exactly what he says about that. And I think that it's fear.
Hmm.
Fear, most of what politicians use is fear appeals. And it was actually, I think it was the guy, Joseph Goebbels or whatever his name is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that guy. He said that those who are persuaded by it should be completely immersed in the ideas of the propaganda without ever being noticed that they're immersed in it, right?
Hmm.
So that's essentially what's going on because it's everywhere. You drive down the street, it's from 2024 or 2025 or whatever it is,
Hmm.
When is the
Yeah.
election? I don't even fucking know anymore.
It's in November, but what's so great
November?
about where I live compared to, because I moved from Phoenix about a year and a half ago, is that it's not political at all where I am. You can hear nothing where I am. It's just, I'm in North Carolina, beach town, and people just like live their lives. You don't see it. That's why I'm pretty sure that this is tourist season. I'm pretty sure that this was a tourist. I'm not saying that there aren't a few scattered people, but you didn't see it like Phoenix, where Phoenix is still pushing the election was fraud. We got a hostile takeover nonsense, and it's like, yeah, I had to get away from that. Not only that, it being so expensive over there and everything that was going on there, but
Yeah, well, there's something interesting happening in America where a lot of people are kind of becoming online. They're coming from the offline perspective where it's all about what the leaders say, and they're
mhm.
starting to realize that there's a lot of stuff going on that ain't right. They're starting to pull away from politics and
Yeah,
all that.
especially the 20 something. And it's so, and a lot of it has to do with destruction, war, and funding. Who's funding the things? And they're waking up to that. The other opportunity that I see, at least even these people waking up, but then they're still also saying that these global organizations are on our side. Well, the UN's going to do this, the WHO, but when a lot of people also are waking up to who they really are, who the UN, the WHO really are, and that they're not a humanity organization. They're not for humanity. They're for their own special interest, profit. And yeah, I think that is the one thing that might help the US, because the US, unlike, any other country I've seen, is so politically infiltrated. It makes you not want to live there. I certainly have no interest in, I'm not, no offense to anyone, I have no interest in the American flag, but I never really was big into that nonsense anyways. I'm all about humanity.
Yeah. Well, I've always said to people where that's concerned, I don't have to talk about it. All you have to do is just go research a psychologist called Alfred Korzybski.
Okay.
Alfred Korzybski's theory of nationalism, the psychology of nationalism. He explains exactly why people get bound to their flags, and it's a lot to do with tribalism and stuff like that, but it's just more propaganda.
Yeah, I
Alfred Korzybski is somebody that's done a lot of other work that's very notable in the mainstream psychology, but what they do is they block out anything that anybody says that proves any of this stuff. Now, all that stuff is done for purpose, and I go on about that a lot. I harp about it a lot because I call it the cult of psychotherapy, because essentially that's what it was created for, you know, to mind control people and push them towards medication and being broken and stuff like that, and not actually to come to their senses and solve their own problems, right? So propaganda and psychology go hand in hand. Propaganda and sports go hand in hand. Propaganda and politics are the same thing. Pretty much everything is there to just keep you immersed in garbage behaviors,
mhm.
living in lies all the time. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And even when it comes to the food, it's like, especially, I know you had mentioned the how the food is much different in America than it is in Barbados. But
Mhm.
even things like putting a freaking, we have like what is it, four Chick-fil-A's in my city alone, and that place is pure garbage. You got McDonald's everywhere. You got, and they just, it's like they want that designed on every corner. One thing I will say though, that is somewhat of a game changer is you see these, when it comes to medicine and drugs, you see these pharmacies failing left and right. That these like Walgreens, CVS's, they are crippling, so that is plus. I think people, do you think that people are waking up to the medical industry, especially after 2020?
I don't know, man. That's a complex question because
Yeah,
I can
it's so
only talk
hard.
about, yeah, I can only talk about what I see where I live.
Good
Um,
point.
I see like where my girlfriend's kids where they're concerned, a lot of their friends and stuff aren't vaccinated and stuff like that. A lot of them refused. And like I guess like you're dealing with like Catholic schools and stuff like that. This is in West Virginia.
Okay.
And there's a big resistance towards all that. Like when they were masking up and stuff, they didn't want to do it over there. Like nobody did it, and they just chose not to do it and not to talk about it, and just like everybody would give each other a nod and be like, "Yeah, that's foolishness."
Mm-hmm.
But then you know what happened in other states where there's still people wearing masks, and like here, there's
Sure.
people still wearing masks, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, and some people who try to pretend that they're super spiritual also pretend that it's judgment or whatever it is, but it's not. It's just this is what's going on. You look in the shopping cart of a person who has a mask on and you see nothing but garbage and chemicals. I don't know any single person, and maybe there are some out there, I haven't met them yet, but I don't know any single person that eats natural foods, uses natural products, that believes in this garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been sick in 7 years. I haven't had the flu or anything, and I haven't been to a doctor in over 15, probably 16 years for anything. And I'm doing fine. I just don't eat crap, right?
Yeah. I mean, the same thing with me is I grew up with this so-called Crohn's disease until I would say until I was 29. I had symptoms of it, but I was eating garbage. I was, luckily I was only taking one medication, and one time I had surgery to remove part of my intestine. But just by changing what I eat, I can completely reverse anything that I had. And I'm like you. I don't go to the I don't have to go to the doctor. I don't get sick. If I do get sick, it's from something like 5G radiation or something like that. That's out of your control, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll feel the effects of that because there's a huge tower like somewhere it's just like a couple miles away from me. It's
Hmm.
just blasting shit. But I try to stay on the beaches and um I'm usually just indoors working or something
Ah,
during the
yeah.
day, so I'm not really subjected to it, but I do. I do realize that sometimes when they dump those chemtrails, I start to feel a little bit dizzy or something. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like what is in
Yeah,
those?
I know what you mean. I've noticed things at night where they're ramping things up, but it's
At
not like
night, yeah.
major. Yeah, it's not
They love to
major. It's
do it.
just like I'll be like sneezing or, coughing, which I've never had before. So it's obviously something with that, or maybe smart meters where I live. Who knows? But
Yeah, I
I
have a
mean, it's
smart
not
meter on
like
my house too, and I can
taking me
tell.
out, so to speak. Yeah.
Mhm.
So some things
Yeah.
are actually out of your control, but you can do your best, so to speak.
Yeah, in some places in America, they have those opt-out programs for the smart meters, but I don't think they have
Hmm.
them here at all. I've tried to look into it. I don't think it's an option at all. Um,
No, I know. Yeah.
but the chemtrails thing, like you said, sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll just bust out into sneezing fit or something, and I'll look outside and I'll see nothing but haze, and it looks like the rain's about to fall or something. And it just looks dirty.
Yeah.
It's like
Hmm.
I can't believe I'm going to use a video game metaphor, but it's kind of like The Legend of Zelda when like Hyrule Castle gets all dark in the skies and stuff after that evil guy takes over. So, like I'm using that because anybody could kind of go and Google that and see what I mean, but it looks exactly
Yeah.
like that.
No,
And
I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah,
But where you're living, is there a lot of nature too, or is it just like beaches and
yeah, there's a lot of I think maybe stuff has become pretty gentrified in the past 10 years.
Mhm.
They're developing a lot more land and stuff, but there's still a lot of countryside and stuff you can go to.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's nice to see. That's what I like about here is you have the city where it's like 100,000 people, and you have the beach 8 minutes away. You have the harbor front downtown, which is very old looking, which is like 8 minutes away. But then you have several parks too, which is really nice with nature trails and things I mean, you could get some hiking in Arizona, but it wasn't wasn't like this. So
Yeah. Yeah, I like to get out on the beach as often as possible and cleanse myself. I just feel like being inside working, even sometimes just like if I'm out working in the yard or something, because I do a lot of work in the yard actually. I don't have no gardener. I don't believe in that. I feel like you should be out there doing all that stuff for yourself. Unless,
no,
of
that's
course, you
that's
own
I,
a
I like
mansion.
that. Yeah, I got a coworker that's big into gardening, and she's showing me pictures all the time, and it's so encouraging to see people do that. So.
Yeah. But even sometimes after doing that, I feel dirty. Like I've been
Hmm.
dumped on and I just need to go like wash off in the ocean or something. And that's the only thing that makes me feel clean.
No, that's smart. Yeah, I really love the ocean too, and that's what's so great is there's so many beaches. I mean, like that I can go to, and it's so calming, relaxing, and over there you don't see like the pollution. I mean, you know what I mean? Compared to like other parts. So.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here though with the chemtrails. It appears to me as though we've been bought and sold. Like
Hmm.
they're in to use our airspace for this stuff because it's an everyday thing and it went from being not at all to every single day, 2, 3 times a day.
Okay.
They're doing it right now. Um, and that only happened after 2020.
Yeah, here I didn't notice it until December. And then from December until like now, I've noticed, and not now, but like maybe a month ago. I think a month ago they started calming down. And obviously they take days off to clean out the thing, and then they go back up. But I just started noticing it in December. So and I just had a great podcast with three other people. One of them did the documentary Frankenstein, so he knows all about, and he's spoken in Scotland a few times and spoken all over about chemtrails. And I don't know if you know about here, they passed in Tennessee and New Hampshire, but they're trying to normalize it. They passed a ban. Well, at least in Tennessee they did. New Hampshire was on and I think that's just all to normalize it. because if you ask people in Tennessee, I guarantee you they're still spraying. You know what I mean? It's all just like, oh yes, yeah, but they banned it in. He brought up a great point because he's like, then even people in Scotland were saying, yeah, but they banned it in Tennessee, so it can be done, and it's like it's all part of their game to normalize it, don't you think?
Everything's being normalized. I'll tell
Good
you
point.
something after I say this. Like people don't realize that there's different types of chemtrails. What causes people to shut down when you start talking about chemtrails is that they think it's a conspiracy theory. They've been conditioned by the
Hmm.
media to believe it's a conspiracy theory, even though you can look up and see it happening, right? But what
Yeah,
they don't realize that's most dangerous about it is that there's a different type of chemtrail. Like not all that stuff is aluminum, barium, strontium, etc. The things that are commonly pushed that people don't want to hear about. It's people who have labs that make these chemicals and they don't know what to do with them. There's EPA restrictions on dumping in the oceans and the lakes and whatnot. So they take it up there and they dump it off,
hmm.
right?
Good point.
So that's what's making a lot of people sick too. And there's like these examples from the Black Plague and stuff too, where there's recounts of this. They didn't know what a plane was back then, so they just said like this really big bird flew over, and then all of a sudden people would start getting really sick. So it's historical references to this happening before.
Hmm.
It's just right now, I think people are more blind than they ever have been because there's so much to distract them and drug them out there.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that Caribbean used to be safe from a lot of stuff like this. And like you were saying with the food, the bad food is definitely coming in. You see little kids
Jeez. Okay.
running home from school, and there's like all these ladies that sit on the side of the road selling snacks and stuff, but they're selling Doritos and Lay's and all those things. So
Oh yeah.
the first thing that these kids eat when they get out of school
Hmm.
is this crap.
Yeah.
And go in the supermarkets and it's all lined up the same way. It's just processed foods on the shelves and
Hmm.
stuff. I just go right and I go straight to the vegetables, you know. I don't go in near any of that stuff at all. But the majority of people are in those sections, you know. I think that
Sadly.
what saves us is that people still are coming here. They're coming out of a old school culture of eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of ground provisions, sweet potatoes, yams, things like that. So people still buy those things. And I think that's saving grace for a lot of people, but not for long. The newer generations, they're going to be completely screwed because they don't know anything about it. And I even see people who are like claiming to be the natural thing. They think because they eat an avocado or drink some ginseng or something, then that makes them immune to drinking on the weekends, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, you know? Um, but the thing I really want to tell you is that old Tedros has got his tentacles into the Caribbean. You know, there's actually something called the Caribbean Economic Forum.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like you have like the prime minister of our country, she's all involved in that, and she wants, you know, she's gunning for a seat in the UN. So we all know
Ah, jeez.
what's going on there. So it's obvious if you know what's going on, it's obvious to see what she's doing, that she sold the country out, right? And the other heads of
Hmm.
government around the Caribbean are doing the same,
Jeez.
right? And so
Yeah.
they just around here, propaganda is rampant, and we all know that they're corrupt, but the majority of people just won't do anything about it because they're traumatized. But that's the entire world. Like the entire world is just based on punishment and trauma-based learning, right? So nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. We, touched upon some great topics today. You'll have to come back again. If someone wants to reach out to you, how do they, to get your services? How do they do that?
Yeah, if somebody wants to reach out to me, they can send me a private message on Instagram at Jehan Satur. That's JehanSatur. Or you can send me an email at selfsabotageinfo@proton.me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Jahan. You're just a
Thanks.
world of knowledge, making a difference in this world.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Boundless Authenticity Podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness.
At the very least, people need to understand that the United States builds bunkers, which are basically cities underground, every 3 months.
Basically, when you dream, you tap into your subconscious. It is your nocturnal intuition, your creativity and imagination unchained from conscious reason, ego and logic.
They're biologically alive, but they have no soul. They have AI consciousness. They can alter your conscious in the brain to get in the brain.
We live in a multidimensional reality. Whether it comes through esoteric information in the spiritual realms, or the UFO people, experiencers, or mainstream through quantum physics and through mainstream science now realizing that parallel dimensions probably exist.
We're all spiritual beings. We're all having these human experiences. We've heard that phrase over and over and over. But what does that really mean? You know, all the big questions of life, we have these answers inside of our soul.
We're ultimately studying the nature of what it is to be human, good and evil, our psychology, how we think, and our health. That's why I love Bruce Lee's great quote, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge.
The Boundless Authenticity Podcast.